Melbourne's tram network is the largest worldwide. In spite of this, it has a number of problems. One of these is that it's often poorly connected, both to itself and to other transport modes. The system has numerous short gaps, which limit its usability and undermine the integration of Melbourne's public transit system. In this video, I'm thus going to discuss 5 short and easy tram extensions that we could build to improve both the usability of the tram network and the integration of Melbourne's public transport as a whole. Let's start with the shortest extension of the lot, the Route 67. This tram currently stretches 15 kilometres from Melbourne University through the Melbourne CBD, St Kilda Road and Elsternwick to Carnegie. But strangely, it almost seems to terminate on a random road intersection, not really close to any major destinations. Surrounding the stop are instead merely some smaller cafes and low-density residential areas. Meanwhile, less than a kilometre up Cornang Road is Carnegie's High Street. Typical of many suburban shopping strips, it features some 500 metres of continuous shops and businesses, with lots of pedestrian activity and a more medium density feel. Most importantly though, is Carnegie's train station. Situated on the busy Cranbourne-Pakenham line corridor, this SkyRail station sees trains every 10 minutes or more most of the day. As a result, the first extension of today is a relatively short one, filling the gap between the current end of the Route 67 and the Cranbourne-Pakenham train line. 2 possible route alternatives could be considered for this extension. Currently, at the intersection of Truganini and Glenhuntly Road, the tram takes a right turn to curve down to Cornang Road. The first possible option sees this replaced with a left turn instead, continuing up Truganini Road to its terminus at Toolambul Road before turning right and then turning right again at Rosstown Road. The terminus would be located at the Rosstown-Cornang Road intersection, with an eye to future extension towards Chadstone. The second alternative maintains the existing Truganini Road route before turning left at Cornang Road and continuing to a new terminus near Carnegie Station. Most likely, this would simply be a typical middle-of-the-road terminus as seen in numerous other locations on the rest of the network. The first option has advantages in terms of being shorter at just 760 metres compared to 950 metres, while also allowing for the reuse of 400 metres worth of removed tram infrastructure along Truganini Road. The first option also avoids traffic congestion and inevitable delays on Cornang Road, especially through the shopping strip. However, I personally prefer the second alternative. Although slightly longer and thus slower, this alternative route more directly serves the busy shopping strip of Carnegie, instead of being located out of the way on a back street. As a result, it would likely have better ridership and links to more destinations. Additionally, this alternative better allows for a further future extension, both north along Princes Highway towards Chadstone, as well as south towards Bentley if desired. While there are advantages and disadvantages to both potential alternatives, my opinion is that placing the tram route directly down the main street of Carnegie will lead to significantly higher ridership, and therefore, I think it is a preferable option. At a length of 950 metres, this would still be a very short extension and could reasonably be completed in a short time frame for a cost of less than $50 million. Moving a little further north, there's a similar situation on the Route 5. This line terminates again seemingly in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by a handful of shops and otherwise just a cricket oval and some low-density homes. Yet only a kilometre or so as the crow flies is the Darling town centre, with a train station and numerous businesses. The historical reason behind the existence of so many of these disconnected tram and train lines is that up until the 1980s, the railways and tramways effectively served as competing modes, each trying to steal each other's business. Fares were different, operators were different, and there was next to no integration. Any convenient interchange was luck at best and usually unplanned. Despite increasing integration for some 40 years now since the establishment of the Met in 1984, many of these poorly connected modes remain. But I digress, this gap is again a reasonably simple one to fill. The tram would first be extended some 700 metres to the end of Wattle Tree Road, before turning right on Malvern Road. After 500 metres, the line would arrive at the Darling commercial strip. While it would certainly be possible to simply terminate the line in the middle of Malvern Road, ideally the line would turn left, most likely down Illawarra Street, and terminate right outside Darling Station. However, this would likely cause traffic congestion and potentially crashes, as well as precluding a further extension along Malvern Road to link to an extended Route 3 in future. Thus, a terminus on Malvern Road is not unreasonable, given it's only a short 2 to 3 minute walk from it to Darling Station. However, it's also not ideal. Again, at a length of only 1.1 to 1.3 kilometres, this extension would be cheap at just $50 to $60 million, possibly even less, and would serve to improve integration of the public transport network, as well as likely increasing usage on the otherwise very lightly used Route 5. The next route is on Victoria Street in the city centre. Before I continue with this, I must acknowledge that while making this video, a process which takes me a considerable amount of time, I noticed a video on my YouTube feed on the exact same topic by Beasts Transport entitled The Missing Link in Melbourne's Tram Network, so please go watch that after this video if you're interested. Nonetheless, currently, there are tram tracks on 3 sections of Victoria Parade and Victoria Street in and around the Melbourne CBD. Yet strangely, none of the 3 are directly connected. From the east, tracks run for roughly 4.5 kilometres from Kew through to Spring Street, before turning onto Latrobe Street. There is then another section for 300 metres between Swanston and Elizabeth Streets, followed by another 900 metre section between Elizabeth Street and Errol Street in North Melbourne. As a result, this third line would see the construction of 2 missing links to allow for a cross-CBD tram line running just north of the Hoddle grid, most likely from North Richmond to North Melbourne. The eastern section would see a new line running 700 metres from Spring Street to Swanston Street. This would most likely feature just one intermediate stop at Lygon Street. A short new section of track, one already being planned, would link the tracks across the Victoria-Elizabeth Street intersection, in the middle of the route. Finally, at the western end of the existing line, a new route would link to North Melbourne Station. While there are numerous possible routes for this, my preferred option would take the tram line down Hawke Street and then up Adderley Street to a new terminus. This would be just shy of 800 metres long and would have 2 stops. With these 2 new sections built, a new tram route could be introduced from North Melbourne to somewhere in East Melbourne or North Richmond.
In my opinion, the most likely terminus is at St Vincent's Plaza, so that's what I've depicted on this potential graphic.
This route would serve to connect several major destinations: North Melbourne Station, Queen Victoria Market, RMIT University and St Vincent's Hospital, as well as linking the dense suburbs of North Melbourne, Carlton and East Melbourne. Despite this, however, its main goal would arguably be to link with other tram lines. It would intersect with 19 of Melbourne's 24 tram lines, or 19 of the 22 that run to the CBD, thus being extremely useful in building a more comprehensive tram network, and likely attracting a large amount of demand simply from the number of interchanges it has. Additionally, the construction of a new North Melbourne terminus would allow the diversion of several tram lines which currently terminate at the congested Melbourne University terminus to instead run to North Melbourne Station, improving capacity and frequency. At a total length of a little over 1.5 kilometres of double track, with a new terminus and several sets of point work and intersections, the project could fairly reasonably be completed for a cost of less than $80 to $100 million. Travelling north, Route 11 follows the pattern of the earlier routes 5 and 67, in that it terminates short of a nearby train station. The Route 11 parallels the Mernda line at between 300 and 980 metres west for almost its entire length after crossing the Merri Creek, yet it never has an interchange with it. Instead, it terminates at West Preston, you guessed it, a rather nondescript locality featuring some 100 metres worth of shops and otherwise not very much, isolated away from other transport links or major destinations. As a result, to add both extra coverage and improve network integration, a 2.7 kilometre tram extension has been proposed from the existing West Preston tram terminus to Reservoir Station. The line would be extended down Gilbert Road as far as that road's terminus, where it would then turn right into Edward Street, which it would follow to a new terminus at Reservoir Station, most likely underneath the train station platforms. This extension would effectively serve as a replacement of a large part of the currently very infrequent and indirect 553 bus route. This extension would provide a better transport link to large sections of the western end of Reservoir, including some 7 to 8 stops along its length. However, as aforementioned, the main goal of the extension would be to directly connect the Route 11 to the Mernda train line, better integrating Melbourne's transport network and making numerous journeys smoother and more comfortable. The extension should also probably be built with provision for a further eastern extension. At some point in the future, the line could be extended 3 to 4 kilometres further to meet the Route 86 and then into La Trobe University. This would better link the transport network in this region and would provide a much cheaper rail link to La Trobe Uni before the potential construction of suburban rail loop some 30 years from now. Nevertheless, that extension is out of the scope of this video. At a length of 2.7 kilometres, the West Preston to Reservoir extension could probably be built at a cost of $80 to $150 million, being a fairly cheap link. For the final extension of this video, we travel again to the southeast. As you might guess from the rest of this video, the Route 3 currently terminates at a relatively random intersection in Malvern East, falling just 1 kilometre short of East Malvern Station. The current terminus has been developed into a reasonably significant suburban shopping strip, but remains an inconvenient and disconnected location to end a tram line. The first part of this extension is resultantly a roughly 1 kilometre extension to East Malvern Station along Waverley Road and paralleling Sylvester Crescent into the East Malvern Station car park. However, when looking nearby on a map, we find Chadstone Shopping Centre. This is the largest shopping centre in Australia with over 20 million visitors annually. Although currently well served with bus routes, and the fact it would probably be preferable to build a heavy rail link there in the long term, an easy short-term win would be to continue this Route 3 tram extension to Chadstone. This could run briefly along the old Outer Circle railway alignment, before turning northeast along Waverley Road, south along Chadstone Road, and finally east to a new terminus on the western side of the shopping centre. This would allow people to travel from the city to Chadstone very quickly and conveniently by public transport, travelling to East Malvern by train and then by tram to Chadstone. Although buses could and currently can do this job, a frequent light rail link would probably be more popular and would have a higher capacity in the long term. As a result, the combined extension, with a length of roughly 3.1 kilometres, could be built for some $120 to $200 million. Effectively, this project would serve to kill two birds with one stone, and would be a great improvement to the public transport network even just by itself. As aforementioned, future extensions could even also link the routes 5 and 67 to Chadstone, but that is way out of the scope of this video, and probably isn't something to consider for many years to come. So, that's the 5 extensions of this video. These would all be very useful, and in many cases it surprises me that they haven't been built already. For what it's worth, the areas of Melbourne served by trams tend to already be much better served by public transport than newer outer suburban areas, which tend to be reliant on infrequent and indirect bus routes. It's extremely tough to justify a tram extension to an area that already has a tram line and a train line within a few hundred metres, when there are entire swathes of outer suburban Melbourne that have next to nothing in the way of rail-based public transport. As a result, many of these extensions would need to be undertaken as part of a comprehensive metropolitan upgrade of the transport system rather than as projects by themselves. Nonetheless, as I mentioned, I think these will all be incredibly useful, and when sufficient depot capacity is available and older trams have been replaced, these extensions should hopefully be some of the first to be prioritised. Thanks for watching.